The nail gun kicked against Anthony's palm as he drove another fastener into the deck board. Rain had threatened all morning, but the gray Portland sky held back just enough for him to finish the job. His crew had knocked off early. One guy's kid had a soccer game, another needed to pick up medication, and Anthony didn't mind working alone. The rhythm of construction calmed him. Measure, cut, fasten. Simple. Clean. His phone buzzed in his pocket. Anthony set down the gun and pulled out the device, expecting his foreman asking about tomorrow's schedule. Instead, an unknown number glowed on the screen. "This is Hensley. Mr. Hensley, this is St. Margaret's Hospital." The woman's voice carried that practiced softness nurses used when delivering bad news. "Your daughter, Jean, is in the intensive care unit. You need to come right away." The deck tilted beneath him. "What happened?" "The doctors will explain when you arrive. Please come as quickly as you can." The line went dead. Anthony's hands shook as he shoved the phone back into his pocket. Jean, his baby girl. She'd been fine this morning, sleepy, quiet, but fine. Mary had promised to pick her up from school, help with homework, make dinner. Everything normal. Everything safe. He grabbed his keys and ran for the truck, sawdust still clinging to his jeans and jacket. Rain started falling as he pulled onto the street, fat drops that exploded against the windshield. Traffic crawled through downtown Portland, every red light an eternity. Anthony gripped the steering wheel until his knuckles went white, his mind racing through possibilities. An accident at school? A fall on the playground? Jean was careful, always had been. Not like other kids who climbed too high or ran without looking. The hospital parking garage smelled like oil and antiseptic. Anthony jogged through the automatic doors and found an information desk. Jean Hensley, ICU. The receptionist typed something, then pointed toward the elevators. 4th floor. Turn right, then follow the signs. The elevator moved too slowly. Anthony watched the numbers climb, 2, 3, 4, and burst through the doors the moment they opened. He followed the blue line on the floor until he reached a nurse's station where a woman with silver hair looked up from her computer. "I'm Anthony Hensley. My daughter. Room 412. The nurse stood. "I'll take you there." She led him down a corridor that smelled like bleach and fear. Machines beeped behind every door. Voices murmured in hushed tones. Anthony's work boots squeaked against the linoleum. The nurse stopped outside a room with drawn curtains. "The doctor will be with you shortly." Anthony pushed through the door. Jean lay in the bed, small and pale against white sheets. Tubes ran from her arm to an 4-pole. Monitors blinked beside her, tracking vitals Anthony couldn't interpret. Her face looked wrong. Bruises bloomed across her left cheek, purple and yellow. More bruises disappeared under her hospital gown. "Jean," his voice cracked. Her eyes fluttered open. Those brown eyes, so much like her mother's. Pain clouded them, along with something else. Fear. "Dad." The word came out as a whisper. Anthony crossed to the bed and took her hand, careful not to disturb the 4. "I'm here, baby." "What happened?" Tears slipped down her cheeks. "She locked me in the closet. She said I deserved it." Ice flooded Anthony's chest. "Who locked you in the closet?" "Mary." Jean's fingers tightened around his. "She was angry because I spilled juice on her magazine. She grabbed my hair and dragged me to the basement. I tried to tell her I was sorry, but she wouldn't listen. She pushed me inside and turned off the light." The machines beeped faster as Jean's breathing quickened. "How long were you in there?" "I don't know. It was dark. I couldn't see anything." Fresh tears came. "I got scared and tried to open the door, but she locked it from outside. I banged and yelled, but nobody came. Then I fell down and everything hurt." Anthony's jaw clenched so hard his teeth ached. Mary, his wife of 4 years. The woman who'd smiled at Jean's school plays, who'd packed lunches and helped with science projects. The woman he'd trusted with his daughter's life after Jean's mother died from cancer 6 years ago. A doctor entered, young, tired-looking, with a stethoscope around her neck. "Mr. Hensley? I'm Dr. Patel. Can we speak outside?" Anthony squeezed Jean's hand. "I'll be right back." In the hallway, Dr. Patel pulled up a tablet and swiped through images. "Jean has 3 fractured ribs, a concussion, and extensive bruising across her torso and back. The injuries are consistent with repeated blunt force trauma, not a simple fall. What are you saying? I'm saying these injuries suggest prolonged abuse. Dr. Patel's eyes held his. We've contacted Child Protective Services and the police. They'll want to speak with you and your wife. Where's my wife? She's in the waiting area. She arrived shortly after the ambulance brought Jean in. Anthony's hands curled into fists. I need to see her. Mr. Hensley, I understand you're upset, but... He walked past her, following signs toward the waiting area. His boots hit the floor hard, each step deliberate. Control. He needed control. Losing his temper now wouldn't help Jean. Mary sat in a plastic chair near the window, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. She wore yoga pants and a loose sweater, her blonde hair pulled into a ponytail. When she saw Anthony, she stood and rushed toward him. Anthony, thank God. I've been so worried. The doctors won't tell me anything. Her voice wavered, thick with tears. Is Jean okay? He stared at her. This woman had shared his bed, his home, his life. He'd trusted her completely. Now he saw the mask, the careful performance, the manufactured grief. You lock her in the basement closet. Mary's face crumpled. What? No, Anthony, that's not what happened. Jean fell down the stairs. I was in the kitchen making dinner, and I heard this terrible crash. When I ran down, she was lying at the bottom. It was an accident. She told me you dragged her by her hair. She's confused from the concussion. Mary reached for his arm, but he stepped back. Anthony, please. You know I would never hurt Jean. I love her like she's my own daughter. Mr. Hensley? A man in a police uniform approached them. I'm Officer Reeves. I need to ask you both some questions about what happened today. The interview room smelled like old coffee. Anthony sat across from Officer Reeves and his partner, Detective Lou, a woman with sharp eyes and gray-streaked hair, pulled into a bun. Mary sat beside him, still crying softly into her tissue. Walk me through the day, Reeves said, pen poised over his notepad. Mary spoke first. I picked Jean up from school at 3 o'clock, like always. We came home, and she wanted a snack. I made her a peanut butter sandwich and poured apple juice. She was reading one of my magazines. I told her to be careful because it was new, and she knocked over the juice. It spilled everywhere. What happened next? I was frustrated. I just cleaned the kitchen that morning. Mary's voice trembled. I told her to go to her room while I cleaned up the mess. But instead of going upstairs, she must have gone to the basement. The next thing I heard was a crash, and when I ran down, she was at the bottom of the stairs. Why would she go to the basement? Detective Lou asked. I don't know. Maybe she thought her art supplies were down there. She's been working on a project for school. Anthony's fingernails dug into his palms. Every word out of Mary's mouth was a lie wrapped in concern. Mr. Hensley? Reeves turned to him. What time did you receive the call from the hospital? Around 4:30. I was working on a deck in Forest Park. And you came straight here? Yes. Had Jean mentioned anything unusual lately? Any problems at home? Anthony thought about the past few months. Jean had been quieter than normal, spending more time in her room. He'd chalked it up to typical preteen behavior, the beginning of adolescence. Now, those memories took on new weight. She's been more withdrawn. I thought it was just her age. Detective Lou leaned forward. Jean told the hospital staff that someone locked her in a closet. Do you have a closet in your basement? Yes. We keep cleaning supplies there. Does it lock from the outside? It has a sliding bolt. I installed it years ago when Jean was little, before my first wife passed. We kept chemicals in there and didn't want Jean getting into them. Mary's crying intensified. This is horrible. That poor baby thinks I hurt her. The concussion must be making her imagine things. Anthony, tell them. Tell them I would never. The doctors say Jean's injuries aren't consistent with a fall. Anthony's voice came out flat, cold. They say she was beaten. Silence filled the room. Mary's face went pale. That's insane. I found her at the bottom of the stairs. She must have fallen several times. Maybe she tried to catch herself in... Mrs. Hensley, Detective Lou's tone sharpened. Do you have any history of disciplining Jean physically? No, never. I've never even spanked her. Mary looked at Anthony, desperation creeping into her eyes. You know that. You know I've always been gentle with her. We'll need to inspect your home. Reeves said. Specifically the basement. Do we have your permission? Of course. Mary nodded quickly. Anything you need. I want to help. Anthony said nothing. His mind worked through the timeline, the details, the lies. Mary was smart. She'd covered her tracks well. But something nagged at him, a memory from years ago. After their house had been broken into when Jean was 6, he'd installed security cameras. One in the front yard, one in the back, and one in the basement near the furnace. Mary knew about those cameras. She would have disabled them before. Wait, Anthony had installed a second camera in the basement. A hidden backup inside an old air vent near the ceiling, positioned to catch anyone tampering with the main camera. He'd never told Mary about it. Never told anyone except his sister, who'd helped him set up the whole system after the break-in. I need to make a phone call, Anthony said, standing. We're not finished here, Reeves said. My sister watches Jean sometimes. She'll be worried. 5 minutes. Reeves nodded. 5 minutes. Anthony stepped into the hallway and pulled out his phone. His hands still shook, but now fury drove them instead of fear. He dialed his sister's number. Anthony? What's wrong? Jean's in the hospital. Mary hurt her. What? His sister's voice pitched higher. How badly? 3 fractured ribs, concussion, bruises everywhere. Deb, I need you to do something for me. Remember that backup camera I installed in the basement? The one in the air vent. The one Mary doesn't know about? That one. I need you to go to my house and get the SD card from it. Don't let anyone see you. The police are going to search the place, and I'm betting Mary already wiped the main camera. But she doesn't know about the backup. I'm on my way. Anthony, I'm so sorry. I never trusted her, but I never thought. Just get the card. I'll call you when I can. He hung up and returned to the interview room. Mary had stopped crying. She sat with her hands folded in her lap, staring at the table. When Anthony sat down, she reached for his hand. He pulled away. An older nurse with kind eyes stopped Anthony in the hall outside Jean's room. Her name tag read Hallie. Mr. Hensley? I've been taking care of Jean. Can we talk for a moment? Is she okay? She's stable. Sleeping now. The pain medication helps. Hallie glanced toward the nurse's station, then lowered her voice. I've been a pediatric nurse for 30 years. I've seen a lot of injuries, a lot of situations. The way your wife reacted when she saw Jean's bruises. She paused. It wasn't shock or grief. It was irritation. Anthony's chest tightened. You noticed that? I notice a lot. And I saw how Jean flinched when your wife tried to touch her hand. That's not confusion from a concussion. That's fear. Hallie's gaze held steady. I can't prove anything, and I can't testify to anything I didn't witness directly. But I wanted you to know, I believe your daughter. Thank you. One more thing. When the police searched your wife's purse, they found Jean's phone. It was turned off. Why would a mother turn off her injured daughter's phone? Anthony hadn't considered that. To keep her from calling for help. Hallie nodded. That's what I thought too. 2 days crawled past. Jean remained in the hospital for observation, her body healing slowly. Anthony stayed by her side, sleeping in an uncomfortable chair, eating vending machine food. Mary came once, bringing flowers and a stuffed animal, but Jean refused to look at her. After 20 minutes of awkward silence, Mary left. The police called Anthony on the 3rd morning. Detective Lou's voice sounded careful, controlled. Mr. Hensley, we've completed our inspection of your basement. The main security camera was wiped clean. No footage from the day of the incident. Did you check for a backup camera? A pause. We found the standard system. Are you saying there's another camera? Air vent near the northeast corner. Hidden inside. My sister retrieved the SD card for me. I have the footage. We'll need that card. Can you bring it to the station? I'm on my way. Anthony kissed Jean's forehead. She stirred but didn't wake. Nurse Hallie sat in the corner, knitting something pink and small. Can you stay with her? I need to run an errand. I'll be here, Hallie said. Anthony drove to the police station with the SD card in his pocket. His sister had watched the footage with him last night, both of them sitting in her kitchen while her husband took the kids to a movie. They'd watched in silence, the only sound Mary's voice screaming at Jean through the laptop speakers. Detective Lou met him in the lobby and led him to a small conference room. Reeves joined them, along with a woman introduced as an assistant district attorney named Foster. Let's see what you have, Lou said. Anthony plugged the SD card into their computer and pulled up the file. The timestamp read 3:47 p.m., 17 minutes after school pickup. The basement appeared on screen, dim and cluttered with storage boxes. The stairs descended from the left side of the frame. For 10 seconds, nothing moved. Then Mary appeared, dragging Jean by her hair. Jean's screams echoed through the conference room speakers. She clawed at Mary's wrist, trying to break free, but Mary's grip held firm. At the bottom of the stairs, Mary threw Jean against the wall. Jean crumpled, sobbing. "Please, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to spill it." "You never mean to do anything." Mary's voice dripped with contempt. "You're clumsy and stupid, just like your dead mother." She grabbed Jean's arm and hauled her toward the closet. Jean fought, kicking and twisting, but Mary was stronger. She shoved Jean inside the small space and slammed the door. The sliding bolts scraped across metal. "You can stay in there until you learn some respect." Mary walked back toward the stairs. Just before she left the frame, she paused and looked directly at the main camera mounted on the wall. She crossed to it, reached up, and pressed something. The screen went black, but the backup camera kept recording. For the next 2 hours, Jean's muffled cries came through the closet door. She banged on the wood, begged to be let out, promised to be better. Eventually, the sound stopped. At 6:23 p.m., Mary returned. She opened the closet and found Jean crumpled on the floor, unconscious. Mary's face showed no panic, no remorse. She pulled out her phone and dialed. 911, my stepdaughter fell down the basement stairs. She's not responding. Please send an ambulance. The video ended. Detective Lou sat back in her chair. ADA Foster stared at the blank screen, her expression unreadable. Mr. Hensley, Foster said finally, we're going to need this card as evidence. Do you have copies? 3 copies. Different locations. Good, because we're going to arrest your wife. Mary's arrest made the local news. Portland woman charged in child abuse case. Ran as a crawl beneath the morning weather report. Anthony sat in Jean's hospital room, watching the coverage with the sound muted. His phone buzzed constantly. Messages from coworkers, neighbors, people he barely knew expressing shock and sympathy. He ignored all of them. Jean sat propped up in bed, picking at a bowl of Jell-O. The bruises on her face had faded from purple to greenish yellow. She'd be discharged tomorrow, the doctor said. Her ribs needed time to heal, but she was young and strong. Her body would recover. The rest would take longer. Dad, Jean set down her spoon. Is Mary going to jail? Yes. For how long? I don't know yet. Maybe a long time. Jean looked at her hands. I thought she liked me. When you first brought her home, she was nice. She helped me with my homework and took me to get ice cream. When did she stop liking me? Anthony crossed to the bed and sat on the edge, careful not to jostle her. This isn't your fault, Jean. None of it. Mary had problems we didn't know about. Problems that made her hurt people. But maybe if I'd been more careful. No. His voice came out harder than intended. He softened it. You were a kid being a kid. You spilled juice. That's normal. What she did wasn't normal. It was wrong, and she's going to pay for it. Jean leaned against his shoulder. I'm glad you found the video. Me too, baby. His phone buzzed again. This time, Anthony looked at the screen. An unknown number, but the area code was local. This is Hensley. Mr. Hensley, my name is Grant Acker. I'm representing your wife. I was hoping we could have a conversation before this situation escalates further. Anthony stood and walked to the window. Rain streaked the glass, turning the parking lot below into a blur of gray. What kind of conversation? A practical one. Your wife is willing to enter a plea agreement. Reduced charges, shorter sentence, in exchange for your cooperation in presenting a more balanced picture of what happened. A more balanced picture. Tensions in blended families can run high. Children sometimes exaggerate or misremember events, especially under stress. Your wife made a mistake in how she disciplined Jean, but her intentions were never malicious. With your testimony about Mary's positive involvement in Jean's life over the past 4 years, we can show the court that this was an isolated incident. Anthony watched rain drip down the window. His reflection stared back, tired eyes, unshaven jaw, shoulders tight with exhaustion. My wife locked my 10-year-old daughter in a dark closet for 2 hours after beating her. Then she lied about it. There's video evidence. What part of that needs balance? Mr. Hensley, I understand your anger, but consider your daughter. A lengthy trial will be traumatic for her. She'll have to testify, relive the experience, face cross-examination. Is that really what you want? What I want is for Mary to face every consequence of what she did. Then you're making a mistake. Because I will win this case, and when I do, Mary will walk free. And she'll still be your wife, with all the legal rights that entails, including the right to see Jean. The threat landed like a punch. Anthony's free hand clenched against the window frame. Is that what you're telling me? That if I don't help you, Mary will get custody? I'm telling you that the justice system is complicated and unpredictable. Juries are sympathetic to mothers. You should think carefully about how you want to proceed. The line went dead. Anthony stood at the window for a long time after the call ended, his reflection growing darker as evening approached. Grant Acker was right about one thing. The legal system was unpredictable. Anthony had seen it before in the years after his first wife died. Bureaucracy and paperwork, hearings that stretched on for months. And Mary had an advantage. She looked the part of a loving stepmother. Blonde and pretty, soft-spoken, with a degree in child psychology from a state university. She'd worked in family counseling before they married. She knew exactly what to say, how to present herself. That's how she'd fooled him for 4 years. Behind him, Jean stirred in her sleep, murmuring something inaudible. Anthony turned from the window and checked his phone. His sister had texted, "Jean can stay with us as long as needed. Kids are excited to have their cousin around." That solved one problem. Jean would be safe while Anthony figured out his next move. Because Grant Acker had made another mistake in his threats. He'd assumed Anthony would work within the system, play by the rules, trust in justice. But Anthony had stopped trusting anything the moment he saw that hospital room. Mary had shattered his faith in people, in safety, in the idea that good behavior got rewarded. If the system couldn't protect his daughter, he'd find another way. Mary made bail 3 days later. $10,000, posted by her friend Lydia Greer, a yoga instructor who testified at the hearing about Mary's gentle nature and commitment to holistic wellness. The judge set strict conditions: no contact with Jean, electronic monitoring, surrender of passport. Mary walked out of the courthouse wearing the same soft smile she'd used at school functions. Anthony watched from his truck across the street, engine idling. Mary climbed into Lydia's silver SUV, and they drove off toward the west side of Portland. He followed at a distance, 3 cars back, taking note of streets and landmarks. Lydia lived in a renovated bungalow near Forest Park, with a manicured garden and a small studio attached to the garage. A wooden sign hung over the studio door, Serenity Flow Yoga. Wind chimes tinkled on the porch. Anthony drove past and circled the block, parking on a side street with a clear view of the house. His phone rang. Detective Lou. "Mr. Hensley, I wanted to give you an update. Your wife's legal team has filed several motions to suppress evidence, including the basement footage. They're arguing that the backup camera violated her expectation of privacy. It was in my house, my basement. I know. The DA's office is confident the footage will be admitted, but might take time. The preliminary hearing is scheduled for 6 weeks from now. 6 weeks. Mary would spend 6 weeks free, living with her friend, preparing her defense. 6 weeks for Grant Acker to find ways to twist the truth. What about her past?" Anthony asked. "Has anyone looked into her background?" "What do you mean?" Mary worked in child counseling. She had access to vulnerable kids. "Has anyone checked if there were complaints against her?" A pause. "I'll look into it." "Do you have specific information?" "Just a feeling. She's too good at this. Too practiced. I'll see what I can find." Anthony hung up and stared at Lydia's house. Lights glowed in the windows, casting yellow rectangles across the lawn. Shadows moved behind curtains. He wondered what they were talking about in there. Whether Mary had dropped the mask now that she'd escaped jail, whether she was laughing about how stupid everyone was. His phone buzzed with a text from Jean. "Aunt Deb made spaghetti. Wish you were here." Anthony texted back. "Be home soon. Save me some garlic bread." Home. His sister's house. not his own. Because his house still smelled like Mary. Her vanilla shampoo, her lavender candles, the lies she'd built into every room. He started the truck and drove away from Lydia's house. But he'd be back. The internet made research easy. Anthony sat in his sister's basement at midnight, laptop open on the workbench beside his tools. Deb had gone to bed hours ago, the kids asleep upstairs. Jean was in the spare room, curled up with a new sketchbook his sister had bought her. Anthony typed Mary's name into the search bar and started digging. Birth records, social media, employment history. She'd listed 3 previous jobs before moving to Portland, 2 counseling centers, and 1 family services agency, all in different states. Anthony pulled up the websites and started making calls in the morning. The first counseling center had closed down 2 years ago. The second one, in Arizona, answered on the 3rd ring. Mountain View Family Services, this is Rebecca. Hi, my name is Anthony Hensley. I'm trying to get information about a former employee, Mary Hensley. She might have gone by her maiden name back then, Mary Fletcher. We don't typically give out information about former staff. I understand, but this is important. Mary is my wife, and she's currently facing child abuse charges here in Oregon. I'm trying to determine if there were any complaints or concerns during her time at your facility. Silence. Then, hold on. Music played for 5 minutes. Anthony paced the basement, phone pressed to his ear. Mr. Hensley? A different voice now, male and older. This is Director Paulson. I'm the executive director here. You said Mary Fletcher is facing charges. Yes. She hurt my daughter. Put her in the hospital. I see. Paulson cleared his throat. Mary worked here 4 years ago as a counselor. She left rather suddenly, and there were concerns. But nothing was formally filed. What kind of concerns? Several parents reported that their children seemed afraid of her. One mother claimed Mary had grabbed her son's arm hard enough to leave marks. When we investigated, Mary said the boy had tried to run into traffic and she'd pulled him back to safety. We couldn't prove otherwise, so we accepted her resignation and let the matter drop. Anthony's hand tightened around the phone. Did she work anywhere before your facility? I believe she listed a position in Nevada. I don't have those records anymore. What about her personal life? Was she married when she worked for you? Yes, to a man named Wesley Dorn. Nice guy, quiet. He'd pick her up sometimes after a shift. Wesley Dorn. Anthony wrote the name in his notebook. Is Wesley still in Arizona? No idea. They moved away before Mary resigned. I assumed they left together, but Paulson trailed off. Mr. Hensley, if you're looking into your wife's past, be careful. There was something about Mary that always felt off, like she was performing all the time. I was glad when she left. Thank you for your time. Anthony hung up and typed Wesley Dorn into the search engine. Results filled the screen. Social media profiles, a business listing for an auto repair shop in Nevada, and 3 news articles. The most recent article was 2 years old. Local man still missing after 2 years. Anthony clicked the link. Wesley Dorn's face stared back from the screen. Mid-30s, dark hair, tired smile. The article said he'd disappeared from his home in Reno, Nevada, 3 years ago. Police had investigated, but found no evidence of foul play. His car and wallet were never recovered. His brother, Ronan Dorn, continued to search for him, posting regular updates on social media. Anthony found Ronan's Facebook page and sent a message. My name is Anthony Hensley. I believe your brother was married to my wife, Mary. I have questions about Wesley's disappearance. Please call me if you're willing to talk. He included his phone number and hit send. Then he went upstairs to check on Jean. She slept peacefully, her sketchbook open on the nightstand. She'd drawn a house. Not their house, but something imaginary. A cottage surrounded by trees, with smoke curling from the chimney and flowers in the windows. Safe. She'd drawn somewhere safe. Anthony pulled the blanket up to her chin and kissed her forehead. Nobody's going to hurt you again, baby. I promise. Ronan Dorn called the next morning. His voice sounded rough, like he smoked too much or didn't sleep enough. You're married to Mary? I was. We're separated now. She's facing criminal charges for child abuse. A bitter laugh. Yeah, that sounds about right. Where are you? Portland, Oregon. I'm in Reno, but I can drive up if you want me in person. Some things need to be said face to face. They agreed to meet in 2 days at a diner outside Portland. Anthony didn't tell anyone where he was going. Not his sister, not the police. Some conversations needed to happen off the record. The diner smelled like bacon grease and burnt coffee. Anthony sat in a booth near the window, watching cars pull into the gravel lot. At noon, a beat-up Ford truck parked near the entrance and a man climbed out, tall, lean, with grease under his fingernails and wary eyes. Ronan Dorn. He spotted Anthony and walked over, sliding into the opposite side of the booth. A waitress appeared, poured coffee, and disappeared without a word. "So you married Mary?" Ronan wrapped his hands around the mug. "How'd that work out for you?" "She put my daughter in the hospital." "She'd kill her." "No." "Then you're luckier than my brother." Anthony leaned forward. "You think Mary killed Wesley?" "I know she did. Can't prove it, but I know." Ronan took a long drink of coffee. "Wesley wasn't perfect, but he loved that woman. Did everything for her. And she treated him like garbage. He told me once that she'd get these moods, cold, mean. She'd say things that cut deep, then act like nothing happened. He stayed because he thought she'd get better. Thought love could fix her." "When did he disappear?" 3 years ago. He called me one night, said Mary was acting weird. Said she'd been asking him about his life insurance, about what would happen to their house if he died. He laughed it off, but I could hear the edge in his voice. 2 days later, he was gone. Did the police investigate Mary? Of course, but she had alibis for everything. Said Wesley had been depressed, that he'd talked about leaving. She played the worried wife, crying for the cameras. And because there was no body, no evidence, they couldn't charge her with anything. Anthony pulled out his notebook and showed Ronan the information about Mary's past jobs. She's worked with kids in 3 states. Every place she left, there were problems. Ronan's jaw tightened. She's a predator. She finds vulnerable people, and she feeds on them. With Wesley, it was psychological. Broke him down bit by bit until he didn't know which way was up. And then when she got bored or needed his money, he stopped, shook his head. I've been looking for his body for 3 years. Checked every canyon, every abandoned mine. Nothing. Would you testify about this if there was a trial? In a heartbeat. But your lawyers need to know, Mary's smart. She doesn't leave evidence. Everything she does is calculated. She left evidence this time. Video of her abusing my daughter. Ronan's expression shifted to something almost like respect. Then you've got her. Don't let go. Because if she walks free, she'll do it again. To some other kid, some other family. She's not walking free. They talked for another hour. Ronan gave Anthony everything he had. Old emails from Wesley, phone records, the names of people who'd witnessed Mary's behavior. It wasn't enough to reopen Wesley's case, but it painted a picture. A pattern of control and cruelty that stretched back years. When they parted ways in the parking lot, Ronan gripped Anthony's shoulder. "She took my brother from me. Don't let her take your daughter." "I won't." Anthony spent the next week organizing everything he'd learned into a file. Every document, every witness statement, every piece of Mary's history got cataloged and copied. He burned 3 sets of DVDs with all the information and stored them in different locations. One with his sister, one in a safe deposit box, one with his lawyer. Then he did something that would have made Grant Acker nervous. He sent an anonymous email to a parenting forum popular in Portland. The subject line read, "Warning about child abuser in our community." The body contained 3 things. Mary's full name, a link to a news article about her arrest, and a 30-second clip from the basement video. Just 30 seconds. Just enough to show Mary dragging Jean by her hair. Anthony hit send from a library computer and walked away. The post went viral within hours. Parents shared it, commented on it, tagged local news stations. By evening, Mary's face appeared on the 5 o'clock news, the video clip playing on a loop while reporters discussed the case. Anthony's phone exploded with calls. "Detective Lou, did you leak this footage?" "No idea what you're talking about." "Mr. Hensley, if the defense proves you violated evidence protocols." "I didn't violate anything. Someone must have hacked the police database. Better check your security." Grant Acker left a furious voicemail. "You think you're clever? You think this helps? All you've done is taint the jury pool. I'll use this to get the entire case thrown out." But Anthony knew better. Jury pools could be changed. What couldn't be changed was public opinion. Mary's face was now associated with child abuse across Portland. Her yoga studio friend Lydia was already getting harassed, her Yelp page flooded with one-star reviews about harboring a criminal. The masks were coming off. The careful performances were crumbling. And Anthony was just getting started. The police called again 2 weeks later. Detective Lou sounded tired. "Mr. Hensley, we've been looking into your wife's past like you asked. You were right. There's a pattern. Tell me, in addition to the concerns at her job in Arizona, we found 2 complaints filed against her in Nevada when she worked for a family services agency. Both were dismissed due to lack of evidence. And get this, Wesley Dorn's disappearance was officially ruled suspicious last year after his brother provided new information. They never found a body, but they found his truck abandoned near Lake Tahoe. The interior had been wiped clean. Mary's work can't prove it, but the timeline matches. Wesley disappeared 2 weeks before Mary moved to Oregon. She showed up in Portland with a new last name, Fletcher, her maiden name, and a clean employment record because she never listed Nevada on her applications. Can you use any of this in the trial? Depends on what the judge allows. Prior bad acts are tricky, but the ADA is building a case that Mary is a repeat offender, not someone who made a one-time mistake. When's the preliminary hearing? 3 weeks. But Mr. Hensley, I need to ask, did you have anything to do with that video getting leaked online? No, because if you did, and it affects the trial, I want Mary in prison, detective. I'm not doing anything that would jeopardize that. It wasn't quite a lie. Anthony wanted Mary in prison. He just didn't trust the system to put her there. So he made sure the court of public opinion delivered its verdict first. Grant Acker held a press conference on the courthouse steps 2 days before the hearing. Mary stood beside him, wearing a conservative blue dress and minimal makeup. She looked tired, fragile. Exactly the image Acker wanted to project. My client is the victim of a vicious smear campaign, Acker told the assembled reporters. An edited video clip was released without context, without the full evidence that will show this was a tragic accident, not intentional abuse. Mary Hensley is a devoted stepmother who has spent 4 years caring for Jean Hensley with love and patience. This rush to judgment is un-American and unfair. Mary dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. I miss Jean so much. I pray every day that she knows I never meant to hurt her. I hope someday she can forgive me. Anthony watched the press conference from his truck, parked a block away. The performance was good. Mary's voice trembled at all the right moments. Her tears fell on cue. If he hadn't seen the video himself, if he didn't know what she was, he might have believed her. His phone rang. ADA Foster. Have you seen this? Yeah. It's going to complicate things. Acker is trying to paint Mary as sympathetic before we even get to court. Will it work? Not if I can help it. But Hensley, I need you to stay quiet. No more leaked videos. No more anonymous posts. Let the evidence speak for itself. I haven't done anything. Keep it that way. Because if Acker can prove jury tampering or evidence contamination, we lose everything. And Mary walks. Anthony hung up and drove to his sister's house. Jean was in the backyard, sitting on the grass with her cousins, building something with sticks and string. She looked happy, safe. He wouldn't let Mary take that away again, even if it meant breaking every rule. The courthouse buzzed with people on the morning of the preliminary hearing. Reporters lined the steps, cameras ready. Protesters held signs, some supporting Mary, claiming she was innocent until proven guilty, others demanding justice for Jean. Anthony pushed through the crowd and found his way to the courtroom. ADA Foster met him inside. We're ready. The judge is allowing testimony about Mary's past employment issues, and we've got Nurse Hallie as a witness. She'll testify about Mary's reaction at the hospital. What about Wesley Dorn's brother? Not for this hearing, but if we go to trial, yes. We'll establish a pattern of behavior. The bailiff called the court to order. Judge Morrison entered. A woman in her 60s with steel gray hair and a reputation for no-nonsense rulings. She surveyed the packed courtroom and frowned. This is a preliminary hearing, not a circus. Anyone who disrupts these proceedings will be removed. Mary sat at the defense table with Grant Acker, looking small and vulnerable. She glanced at Anthony once, her eyes wet with tears. He stared back, his expression flat. The prosecution presented first. ADA Foster walked the court through the evidence. Jean's injuries, the hospital reports, Nurse Hallie's observations. Then she played the basement video. The courtroom went silent as Mary's voice filled the speakers. "You're clumsy and stupid, just like your dead mother." Anthony watched the jury pool. 6 people seated in the gallery who'd been called for potential jury selection. Their faces showed disgust, horror. "Good." Grant Acker rose for cross-examination. "Let's talk about this video. It shows approximately 3 minutes of footage. Where's the rest?" "The rest shows my client's daughter locked in a closet for 2 hours, Foster said. "We can play the entire file if you'd like, but I don't think anyone wants to hear a 10-year-old crying for that long." Objection. Counsel is making an emotional appeal. Sustained. Judge Morrison said. "Ms. Foster, stick to the facts. The facts are that Mary Hensley assaulted a child, locked her in a dark closet, deleted evidence, and lied about it. The medical records support the video evidence. The defendant had motive, resentment toward her stepdaughter, and opportunity. This is not an accident. This is intentional abuse." Acker stood. "Your Honor, we'll show that this video has been edited, that it doesn't show the full context of what happened that day. My client did discipline Jean, perhaps too harshly, but her intentions were to correct bad behavior, not to cause lasting harm. This is a case of overreaction, not criminal intent." "Mr. Acker," Judge Morrison said, "are you arguing that locking a 10-year-old child in a closet for 2 hours is reasonable discipline?" "I'm arguing that parents have a right to discipline their children without facing criminal charges every time they make a mistake. A mistake that resulted in 3 fractured ribs and a concussion." Acker's confidence faltered. "The medical evidence will show those injuries are consistent with a fall. We'll see about that at trial." Morrison turned to Foster. "Do you have additional evidence to present?" Foster glanced at Anthony. He'd given her something that morning, something he hadn't told anyone about, something he'd found 2 days ago while going through Mary's laptop. "Yes, Your Honor. We'd like to present evidence found on the defendant's personal computer." Acker shot to his feet. "Objection. We haven't been provided this evidence in discovery. It was obtained yesterday evening," Foster said. "Mr. Hensley used his own password to access the shared family laptop. He found a hidden folder that the police missed during their initial investigation." "Your Honor, this is outrageous." "Let's see what you've got, Ms. Foster." Foster opened her laptop and connected it to the courtroom display. A folder appeared on screen, labeled Training Files. Anthony's stomach churned, even though he'd seen this before. He'd spent hours the previous night going through Mary's laptop, looking for anything that might help the case. The main files were innocuous: recipes, work documents, family photos. But buried deep in the system, hidden behind multiple password protections, he'd found a folder Mary thought no one would ever see. Foster opened the first video file. A different basement appeared on screen. A different child, a boy, maybe 7 years old, with dark hair and frightened eyes. Mary's voice came through the speakers, cold and clinical. "If you don't stop crying, you'll stay here all night." The boy sobbed harder. Mary slammed the door. Foster opened another file. Another basement, another child. This time a girl with blonde braids. Mary stood over her, arms crossed. "Your mother left you because you were bad. Do you want me to leave too?" "No, please." "Then you need to learn." File after file. Different children, different locations, but the same pattern. Mary would isolate them, berate them, film their fear. Some videos lasted minutes. Others went on for hours. The courtroom erupted. Reporters scrambled to take notes. The jury pool looked sick. Grant Acker's face went pale. He leaned toward Mary and hissed something. She shook her head, eyes wide. Judge Morrison banged her gavel. "Order. Mr. Acker, does your client have an explanation for these videos?" Acker stood slowly. "Your Honor, we need time to review this evidence and determine its authenticity. It came from your client's password-protected laptop," Foster said. "The metadata shows the files were created over a span of 4 years in 3 different states. These are the children Mary Hensley worked with in her previous counseling positions. She was supposed to be helping them. Instead, she was tormenting them. Mary finally spoke, her voice shaking. Those videos are taken out of context. Those children needed firm boundaries. Their parents authorized me to traumatize them? Foster's voice cut through the courtroom. To lock them in dark rooms and film their suffering? What kind of therapy is that? Objection. Acker's composure cracked. My client's professional methods are not on trial here. There now, Morrison said. She looked at Mary with open disgust. Mrs. Hensley, these videos show a pattern of abuse spanning multiple years and multiple victims. Combined with the evidence regarding your stepdaughter, I'm revoking your bail effective immediately. Your Honor, please, Acker started. I'm also ordering a full investigation into each child shown in these videos. Ms. Foster, I assume you'll be contacting the families. Already in progress, Your Honor. The bailiff approached the defense table. Mary's face twisted with rage. She stood, knocking her chair backward, and pointed at Anthony. You did this. You ruined everything. Her voice rose to a shriek. You think you can take my life from me? You think you're some kind of hero? You're nobody. Just a pathetic construction worker who can't even protect his own daughter. The bailiff grabbed her arm. Mary twisted away, still screaming. Jean was weak. She needed discipline. She needed someone to toughen her up. But you babied her, just like her dead mother did. Grant Acker tried to quiet her, but Mary shoved him away. I should have gotten rid of her when I had the chance. Just like I got rid of. She stopped, realizing what she'd almost said. But the courtroom had heard enough. Anthony sat motionless, watching Mary collapse into incoherent sobbing as the bailiff led her away in handcuffs. He felt nothing. No satisfaction, no relief. Just cold certainty that she would never hurt Jean again. The trial happened 3 months later. By then, families from Arizona, Nevada, and Oregon had come forward, their children's stories matching the videos. Mary faced 47 counts of child abuse spanning 6 years. Wesley Dorn's case was officially reopened as a homicide investigation, with Mary named as the primary suspect. Grant Acker withdrew from the case. A public defender took over, but there wasn't much to defend. The evidence was overwhelming. On the day of sentencing, Anthony sat in the front row with Jean beside him. She'd testified 2 weeks earlier, calm and clear, telling the court exactly what happened. She didn't cry, didn't break down. She was stronger than Mary had ever given her credit for. Judge Morrison sentenced Mary to 40 years in prison with no possibility of parole for 20. As the bailiff led her away, Mary looked at Anthony one last time. Her face showed no remorse, no regret, only hatred. He met her eyes and said nothing. There was nothing left to say. 2 weeks after sentencing, Anthony received a call from Detective Liu. Mr. Hensley, I thought you want to know. We've been investigating Lydia Greer, Mary's friend. Yeah, turns out she's been in contact with Mary since the arrest. We intercepted a letter where Mary asked Lydia to handle you. Lydia was trying to sell one of the video files to a journalist, probably to make you look bad, like you planted evidence. Where is she now? We're bringing her in for obstruction of justice. But I want to give you a heads up. She might try to contact you. Thanks for the warning. Anthony hung up and looked out the window of his new apartment. He'd sold the old house. Couldn't stand being in it anymore. Couldn't walk through rooms where Mary had lived and lied. Jean seemed relieved when he told her they were moving. The next day, Lydia showed up at the construction site where Anthony was working. She parked her SUV near the entrance and waited for his lunch break. Anthony walked over, tool belt still strapped around his waist. What do you want? To talk. Lydia's yoga instructor calm had vanished. She looked haggard, desperate. Please. 5 minutes. He crossed his arms. Talk. I need you to tell the police this was a misunderstanding. I wasn't trying to hurt you. I was just helping Mary because she's my friend. She's not the monster everyone thinks she is. She tortured children for fun. She put my daughter in the hospital. What part of that isn't monstrous? She made mistakes, but she's not evil. She just needs help. Anthony stepped closer. Lydia flinched. You want to help Mary? Fine. But here's what's going to happen. I'm going to send screenshots of every message you sent her in jail to every parent who uses your yoga studio. I'm going to make sure everyone in Portland knows you supported a child abuser. Your business is done. Your reputation is done. You'll spend the next few years trying to rebuild your life while Mary rots in prison. You can't do that. Watch me." He walked away. That evening, he created a simple document with screenshots of Lydia's messages to Mary, obtained from police records through a public information request. The messages showed Lydia offering to handle Anthony and make him pay for ruining Mary's life. Anthony sent the document to every parent email address associated with Serenity Flow Yoga. He posted it on parenting forums. He made sure it spread. Within a week, Lydia's studio was vandalized. Her clients abandoned her. She fled Portland, leaving behind a foreclosed property and a ruined name. Anthony felt nothing about that either. She'd chosen to stand with a predator. She could live with the consequences. 6 months after Mary's sentencing, Anthony and Jean drove out to the old house. It had been sitting empty since he sold it, the new owners not scheduled to move in for another month. Anthony had one more thing to do before he walked away completely. Jean waited in the car, reading a book, while Anthony unlocked the front door and stepped inside. The house smelled stale. Dust covered the furniture they'd left behind. Anthony walked through the rooms, remembering Jean's first day of school when she was 6. Christmas mornings. The day he brought Mary home and introduced her to his daughter, believing he was giving Jean a mother again. He descended the basement stairs. The closet stood open, empty. The security cameras had been removed months ago. Nothing remained but concrete and shadows. From his pocket, Anthony pulled a matchbook, the same kind his grandfather had carried when Anthony was young. He lit one match and watched it flare bright. No forgiveness. Not in this house. He dropped the match into a pile of old newspapers he'd brought down earlier. The flame caught, spread. Anthony watched for a moment, then climbed the stairs and walked out. He got in the car, where Jean waited. "Did you do it?" she asked. "Yeah." "Good." As they drove away, smoke curled from the basement windows. By the time the fire department arrived, the structure would be engulfed. The investigation would rule in electrical fire, old wiring, abandoned property. No one would connect it to Anthony. He glanced at Jean in the rearview mirror. She'd gone back to her book, calm and peaceful. Safe. That was all that mattered. The house burned behind them, erasing the past. They drove toward their new apartment, toward a future that belonged only to them. Anthony had lost faith in mercy, in justice, in the idea that good people got rewarded. But he gained back his daughter's trust. And in the end, that was enough.